Hi, and welcome to another installment of Lifting Our Voices, a weekly look at church music. I'm Jim Boatwright, Director of Music at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, before we get into our hymn, I'd like to have a little commercial break. On June the 11th and 12th, the 525 players here at Redeemer Lutheran Church will be putting on the play Bingo, the Winning Musical. It's fun, and it's funny, and it's great family fun. So I invite all of you that are in the area to come join us either at 7 o'clock on the 11th or 3 o'clock on the 12th as we enjoy Bingo, the Winning Musical. I think you'll really enjoy it. So now let's get back to the song. Remember, this is the tune we're talking about. And the hymn is a new hymn called The Play of the Godhead. For the last 2 weeks, we've looked at the first two verses. This week, we'll look at the third verse. And I'll warn you, it's a little more difficult. Let me read it for you. It goes like this. In God's gracious image of co-equal parts, we gather as dancers, uniting our hearts in tune with the music of all living things. We join in the round of bright nature that rings with rapture and rhythm. Creation now sings. Well, I would like to look at this verse backwards, if you will, from the end to the beginning. The end of it, you remember, says, creation now sings. Now, that's a pretty and a nice thought, but what do you think that means, creation sings? Well, there is, as we know, there's great beauty and grandeur in nature. We see it a lot. Does maybe this mean that in the beauty and grandeur of nature, we're able to glimpse a little bit of God's grandeur and God's beauty? Is that the way that nature sings? Well, it could be, but there's more to it. Let's look a little bit earlier in the song where we read this. Creation rings with rapture and rhythm. Now, rapture is a word that we don't use a lot, but rapture means a feeling of intense joy or intense pleasure. Now, I'm not sure this is what it means, but go with me on this, okay? We've all had those moments of a rapturous experience with nature. We were in rapture with the beauty of nature. Maybe it was viewing a beautiful sunset, or maybe seeing the vastness of the ocean, or maybe seeing the majestic mountains with those incredible, breathtaking vistas. Maybe as easy as seeing the first daffodil that comes up in the spring, or maybe it's the first red tomato that you see and taste, or maybe it's the first juicy peach of peach season. Well, whatever it is, we've all had those moments of having a little bit of rapturous and seeing nature, of the joy, the sheer joy that we see in nature around us. And maybe that's part of it. But then it also talks about rhythm. Well, there's something to me beautiful about the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of the seasons, from the coldness of winter to the warmth of spring, to the beauty of fall, and even the heat of summer. There's also the rhythm of rainy days followed by sunny days, nights that followed the day that follows the night. All these rhythms are a beautiful part of nature. And that's part of this whole majesty and grandeur of creation singing. Backing up a little bit more, the song says, we sing around with nature. Now, what? Like around, like row, row, row your boat? Well, not exactly, but sort of, because we join in a round of nature that's already ringing with the rapture and rhythm. I think part of this is saying something profound. In the same way that God created nature as something beautiful and awesome, God created each of us to be beautiful and awesome. That means you're beautiful and awesome in God's eyes. And that's a pretty profound thought. Well, we join in all of creation in this dance of praise to God by living into all that God has created us to be. Now we're at the start of the song. In God's gracious image of co-equal parts, we gather as dancers, uniting our hearts. And just as God's co-equal parts of creator and redeemer and sustainer interplay in this inexplicable dance, in the same way, we dance in that same dance with creation. We dance with others in praising God and serving others, and then becoming all that God has created us to be. It's a tough verse, I admit it. And maybe it's one of those where we just get caught up in the beautiful poetry that Mrs. Bringle has given us. And like all good art, there are many ways of looking at it. And I invite you to look at it and interpret it in your own way. But ultimately, we know that God created us and all of creation and cares for us. And in turn, we care for all of creation and all of each other. And so we dance. So I'm going to play for you a little bit more of the play of the Godhead, and hope you've learned a new hymn through all of this. Thank you.